What's going on? What's going on? It is Women's Wednesday. Welcome to Brother from Another Show. What is going on? Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, so
We
glad to
got a
be
lot
with
of
you.
black. I know, right? We got a lot of black girl magic here today. And shouts out to Michael Smith and Michael Holly for making sure we had the space to do this today.
Yes.
Rita, what are we here for, honey?
I mean, you already mentioned it. It's Women's Wednesday. It appears that they've been doing a trend of having women on Wednesdays. So we're just continuing the trend. And I'm just glad to be here, man. It's really glad to be with you. It's glad for us to talk about sports, have a platform to talk about what we love, which is sports. And we've been doing this a long time. So I'm just glad that we're
We
here
really
together.
have.
We have the
Yeah,
opportunity to
we
talk.
really have just to kind of give people a little bit more background on the both of us. I know I speak to me. Been working in sports media for over 10 years. I had my own sports media company called Fans Favorite Fan, where we shared fan experiences and did game day reporting, and was able to work with a lot of like networks as well as like universities and athletic programs. But my passion generally was mentoring people that look like us that wanted to work in sports, because a lot of us were told no coming in the door, and so we're like OGs in the game, you know what I'm saying? So I I give Rita the space to kind of fully introduce herself.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, man. I started behind the scenes, was doing some production. I did some writing. I started my own blog, and that's where my name, the NFL Chick, comes from. And then, I started doing some radio, some local Baltimore radio. And I still am here. I do a weekend show on 105.7 The Fan here in Baltimore. And we don't just talk Baltimore sports because there's only two major ones, but we talk about everything. So I'm just really excited to have a platform to really talk about all things sports. It's been a long road for both of us, but I think that we can both agree that the process has been really sweet. So
Right. It's been beautiful. It's been hard, but it's been beautiful. And I think the biggest thing is that for the both of us, we are literally like sisters from another, because in general, we've been
we need a spinoff.
is that
I like
enough?
that one. Sister from another mister. Can we get that
but
going?
we made sure we built that community and that camaraderie for the both of us, as well as other people that worked with us back in the day, or
Yeah.
just kind of fizzled out for the most part. But in general, we both have our own communities that generally cross over, and we're just always rooting for each other. So I think that that's so dope, so dope.
Absolutely.
So we've got a dope show.
We really do. We have really a great show today. We have Nekias Duncan to talk NBA. We also have Sheena Quick to talk some NFL,
Yes.
and then we'll also have some quick hits as well. Where we'll talk about some things that's been on our minds in the sports world and give our opinions about that. So I'm just really excited. We're coming off of NBA All-Star Weekend. I know you and I both have a lot of opinions about that, so I can't wait to talk about that. And we're starting to get into the thick, like the end of NBA season. So now, playoffs are seeding and all of that is starting to matter. I think if you're a fan, right, that's a good thing, because not too many guys are going to be sitting. What do they call that again? When they have the players sit? I forgot the technical term that they use. Load management. Is that it?
Yeah.
Management. Yes. So I think if you're an NBA fan, this is a good chance to probably go to a game, because I feel like load management is less because teams are trying to get into the playoffs. So should be a good time.
Yeah. So we're gonna break right now for a commercial real quick, and we'll be right back with our first guest.
Wow, I appreciate it. I truly don't think I deserve all this, because I know I've done a lot of good things in basketball, but I haven't done them yet in the Suns jersey, and I'm looking forward to doing it. So I want to go out there and do as most as I can and be the best that I can every day for you guys. So I appreciate the warm welcome, but I got more work to do.
Favorite Kevin Durant. I don't know if anybody knows this, but I love me some KD. He is petty and he's just who he is. I love everything about it. I don't care what people have to say about KD. So, Nekias, please be kind to Mr. Durant on this show today. We appreciate you. I'm just kidding. But joining us now is Nekias Duncan from Basketball News. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nekias.
Just
no.
Quick.
You there?
Hello?
Okay, I hear you now. All right, great.
Okay.
So obviously, you know, that's Kevin Durant talking. We know he got traded to the Phoenix Suns. So there's been a lot of talk about what his impact can be once he's able to play. You got a lot of people that really feel like that KD can catapult this team. And then there's some people that's even talking about his legacy is on the line if they don't make it and win the finals. First of all, how do you like this trade? And where do you see this going? How far can the Suns go with KD?
I do like the trade. I will say Mikal Bridges has been hooping all year long, and he's doing the thing in Brooklyn right now as well. But this is Kevin Durant. Anytime you have a chance to add a talent like that, especially mid-season, and to kind of inject some life into a team that, you know, fresh off a finals run a couple of years ago, embarrassing loss last postseason. You have a little bit more Chris Paul decline. Devin Booker's missed some time. So now you plop Kevin Durant in the mix of this, like, hey, let's get this thing going. I think it's a really good move for Phoenix. As far as the legacy portion with Kevin Durant, like, I don't really buy into that. Like, watch him play and you understand how great he is. Like, he's one of the greatest scorers ever. He's one of the greatest players ever. Has 2 rings, has 2 finals MVPs. Like, as much as people clown the Warriors stint, like, he was the best player on those teams. So I don't really get into that portion of it. I will say, if you cash in the kind of chips that you did with Phoenix, again, Mikal Bridges gone, Cam Johnson gone, 4 first-round picks, and you're doing this for KG, who is currently out with the injury, he's missed a ton of time over the last 2-3 years. He is 33, 34 years old. So, like, you are really pushing all your chips to the table. I think this hurts the Suns more than it hurts Kevin Durant's legacy if they don't end up winning. But assume if KD is able to stay healthy, like, I think at worst they're second, third best team in the league. I think they have a real chance to win the title this year.
So with that, how do you think his initial response in that clip where he's like, hey, you know, I haven't really done anything here yet? Like, there were a couple of fans who were taken aback by that because they want to be excited about something. How do you think that's going to go over with the fan base there?
One, I was just surprised at how the introductory press conference was held. I think it was a bunch of season ticket holders. They had it in the arena. I got to watch that live. I was not there, sadly, but I got to watch that live, and someone asked KD a question before he can answer. It's a standing ovation, it feels like. I think they are already very excited about what he's going to bring to the table. As far as the answers go, like, I don't know if that's going to be any kind of downer. It's very Kevin, if you've heard him speak before. Like, he knows how good he is, but he's also like, hey, I got a job to do. So I think that's common between guys like him, like the late Kobe. He was like that as well. A lot of different athletes, like, hey, job not finished. Let me do what I need to do, and then y'all can say what you need to say. I'm focused on trying to get this title in here. And so that was kind of the tone of his presser period. There was a lot of, I'm excited to get to work. I'm excited to do the work. I'm excited to put in work with my new teammates. I'm excited to prove myself to the Phoenix Suns fans, which it's kind of funny because it's Kevin Durant. Like, you already know how good he is. Like, I don't think there's a Suns fan like, wait, what can he do? So
right.
I'm not too worried about it.
I'm not either. And I'm actually excited for this to happen because the West is just a mess. And I mean that in a good way, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, the East, I feel like we know, you know, Boston is the creme de la creme, right? And then everybody else is going to try to claw at them. But the West is just so muddled with talent. And Kevin Durant simply added to that. Kyrie Irving added to that. So there's just so many question marks, right? And of course I got to ask this because, you know, there's a whole Lakers contingent out here. So I'm curious to know your thoughts. Like, what do you think happens to the Lakers? You know, I know that they made their trades. They brought back D'Angelo Russell. I'm curious to know, like, do they have a chance in this playoffs? If they make the playoffs, like, do they have a real chance, or is it just, thanks for coming, God bless and good night?
I lean more towards the latter, honestly. I do think I liked a lot of what the Lakers did at the trade deadline. I think it was very important for them to balance out their roster in a way that it just was not at the beginning of the year, turning Russell Westbrook into 2 players that can shoot and another player that can really defend. And kind of flow between multiple positions in that way, I think was very important for them. But with the way that the season started, it's going to be a climb for them to get into the play-in and stay there. And even if they're able to win their way through that, now you're looking at a first-round series with Denver, or if Phoenix continues to make their way up the standings, it's a 7-game series with them. I don't see title contention for them. Like, I don't think that's LeBron's fault, or like Anthony Davis been in and out of the lineup, but he's been really good when he's been there. It just feels like they're behind the 8 ball with how their season started. So I don't really see a deep playoff run for them this year.
Understood. Let's bring this down south just a little bit. So we have heard that in the city of Atlanta, another team needs another head coach. So what do you feel about the coaching search for the Atlanta Hawks, and how they need to go about finding someone that not only can coach on the court, but can actually, maintain some type of rapport and culture in the locker room? Because clearly we've been hearing things about that locker room and a lot of issues that have been happening in there, but who's going to be the person that you can think of that could be available right now that could come to Atlanta and shake things up?
Ooh, well, 1, that's a good question. 2, kind of feel for Nate McMillan. The Hawks and everyone else goes on All-Star break, and I guess he just gets the call like, hey, don't worry about coming back. Like, that's kind of tough. But as far as the Hawks job, I would say, I think I read one of the front runners for the job, or someone they really want to talk to, is Quinn Snyder, the former Jazz coach. And I think that's probably the best blend that you can find of the X's and O's and kind of maximizing that roster. He's a brilliant offensive mind. I do think with the addition of DeJounte Murray this year, he's been good, but trying to figure out the fit between him and Trae Young, trying to figure out how you are utilizing the bigs. John Collins for like the 15th year in a row is in trade rumors, because they're trying to figure out how to best utilize him and with that salary slot. So I think Quinn, and the way that he kind of preaches the off-ball movement, and has history with the Utah Jazz, with another, not as ball dominant as Trae is, but he's had the experience with Donovan Mitchell and kind of building an offense around him and having movement and having shooters that way. I think this is going to be a multi-year thing either way. But I think even if you bring in someone like Quinn, who 1, has the X's and O's down, 2, has that experience with a guard that can kind of pull up and play make the way that Trae can, or in a similar way that Trae can. The roster is still a little bit short on shooting and movement shooting, and I think you're not going to get that offense maximized in a way without adding that. So I think this is going to be more, what is the front office going to do with the personnel, more so than how can the coach, especially this year. So
if we got any Hawks fans listening, don't be expecting somebody to come in the door and bring in a title. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, can't get that early. Like, shout out to Nate. If you remember when he took over for Lloyd Pierce, like, that's when the Eastern Conference Finals run happened. And I think they just kind of needed that, needed more, I guess, a stronger voice in the locker room. And even that, well, we see how it ended a couple of years later. But I don't know if you get that same blend, because it's like the Hawks are also trying to work in new roster pieces on top of figuring out the voice. And I think when Nate took over, you kind of knew what the core was, what they were running. They just needed an extra jolt. And so it's going to be a little bit different this year. I wouldn't be expecting a major move for the Hawks in terms of the standings or their playoff viability.
Understood.
Let's stay over East, is what we like to call it in Baltimore. It's either over West or over East, right? You have we already talked about the Celtics, right? But you still have the Bucks, right? You have Giannis, obviously, and you can never count out a guy like Giannis. And we know last year in the playoffs, they didn't have an opportunity to be in their at their full capacity because of Middleton. How do you think that they can contend against the Celtics now, bearing injury, of course?
If they're healthy, like I picked the Bucks to beat the Celtics last season, and that was with Middleton out. I thought Giannis was going to do enough to kind of dominate the paint on both ends to kind of get that done. If they're healthy now, like, I do think they've added to their bench. I think Joe Ingles has been very good for them. We're going to see how the Jay Crowder acquisition works out whenever he gets back on the floor. Has not played so far this year, but I think his ability to defend, his willingness to shoot, and he can get he's a streaky shooter, but once he gets hot, he really gets hot. But just his presence allows the Bucks to kind of unlock some of their better lineups and really maximize what Giannis does. So that's exciting. If they're healthy, like, I would not be surprised at all if they come out the East. Like, they would probably be my East pick, honestly. Because of how much faith, just because of how much faith I have in Giannis. The creation from Chris Middleton, I think, is very important for them. Drew Holiday has had himself one heck of a year, and having to take on a larger load as Chris Middleton missed the first portion of the season. That big three, more bench depth, a little bit more shooting. They have the size advantage over Boston. I think they can get it done if they're healthy.
I'm gonna push back a little bit, Dawn, real fast. I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned because I feel like I just watched them play the Celtics without Tatum, without the big guys, Brown, and I believe they won in overtime.
They did win, yeah.
I mean, they didn't have their best players. I'm concerned.
No, I think that's fair. And I think Boston, if they don't have the best team in the NBA, they at the very least have one of the deepest ones. Like I just recently wrote an article about Derek White. He's been starting for them. They've used him as a sixth man when they acquired him last year. Derek White could start for just about every team in the league. And the fact that he's like fifth or sixth on the pecking order for them just kind of speaks to how good they are. I think that's fair. I would also just point to last season without Middleton and with Giannis having an inefficient season, they still pushed Boston 2-7. And it took Grant Williams, I think, taking like 18 threes. And that was part of the game plan. Leave him open, dare him to beat them. And he did, to his credit. And so I think with that, I really think it's a pick 'em in that kind of series. Honestly, like Boston's really good. Jason Tatum's taking a step. Jaylen Brown's taking a step. I think Giannis has been incredible despite a weird roster context for him in spite of the injuries. And as they've gotten healthier, you've seen the run that he's been on leading up into the All-Star break. So I wouldn't put it past it. Like I think that's a 7-game series either way. I would probably pick Milwaukee again, but Boston's tough. I think to your earlier point, Boston and Milwaukee are kind of the clear-cut top of the East. And I think everyone else is at least a tier or two below them.
So are we shifting now from the NBA, like the men's NBA, to the WNBA? Are we ready for that? Like, because you know how I am. Like, I don't, whatever.
We can.
Okay, so let's touch upon Candace Parker's moment at the NBA All-Star game, and her just kind of stepping into what could possibly be us watching her already in her like second act, you know what I'm saying, actively. Just that transition and how well she's doing and doing that, and also maintaining her status as a professional athlete.
Candace Parker is incredible. Like in whatever context you want to put her in. Like I'm very impressed with the work that she does. Like this is, I think she first woman to be part of the main broadcast crew for an All-Star game. Yes, so that's been dope. But even beyond that, her work on Inside the NBA, I think she has the Tuesday slate with Dwayne Wade, or it was Dwayne Wade, now Jamal Crawford. She's been doing work there, been doing work with NBA TV, and I don't think we have to spend too much time on how great she's been as a basketball player and how inspirational she's been on and off the floor in that regard. So I don't have anything bad to say about Candace Parker. I guess I'll put it that way.
I wasn't expecting you to have that bad, but I'm just saying we just needed to raise the
today's show anyway.
Like
not on today's show.
Oh no,
show you wouldn't anyway.
She deserves her flowers. She deserves her flowers for sure.
She deserves. Did you have the opportunity to go to the All-Star by any chance?
I did. It was cold out there, but it was fun. So I enjoyed myself.
Okay. All right. I mean, because I was curious. I was curious to know the vibe, obviously this is not a city that, we would normally say would host an NBA All-Star weekend. But I was just curious to know, like, the vibe of it all in different, what was the word? Surroundings, I guess I'd say.
It was in Atlanta, I'll tell you that.
It's stark difference, okay? Stark difference.
Yeah, a little bit different than Atlanta, I would say. Like, this was my third All-Star game that I've been to. I went to the one in Charlotte, and I went to the one in Chicago before the world shut down. And so comparing Utah to those two, it was not Chicago. Even if you had some of the same weather concerns, like just in terms of everything that was available to do if you wanted to get into whatever, that was different. But other than that, I do think it was pretty well put together, considering what the locale was and just the size of it. I think they did pretty well. But I think my biggest concern was just going back to Sunday, what the All-Star game was. Because part of the complaint I would have is the fan experience wasn't super great, but that's more so because of what happened there. The game was terrible. The game was terrible. Like that's not Utah's fault. That is the players did not give effort. And so like that kind of makes it, that kind of simmers it down a little bit. But overall, I think Utah did a pretty good job of hosting.
Okay. I mean,
so do we want to touch? Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, I feel that wholeheartedly, and that fan experience. I'm real big on that. I pay attention to what fans saying, what they're doing, and I still don't understand how Salt Lake City was chosen. Like, I'm not dissing y'all, so don't come for me because I will pull up. But the point is don't go back to places like that where you gotta create something in order to make some things happen around the fan experience. Like, it's like you almost gotta bring a full culture setting or something like that to kind of like bring it in what fans are really looking forward to. And I feel like that's too complicated. Why not go places where the fans are asking to go? So yeah, I like that you pointed all of that out because I wasn't feeling it, period. I was sitting at home watching it and I wasn't feeling it.
I can't say that I believe you, man. It was weird energy in there. Like, I would say the NBA did try. Like, again, they hosted the game, they hosted the event. I think Salt Lake did a good job of hosting multiple things around the area. And even with the halftime show, like having Burna Boy there, having Tim's there, having Rima there, like there was fantastic. An attempt. Yeah, like there was an attempt made. It's just
Tim's.
That was
Atlanta.
I was getting ready to say, now it didn't play towards the demographic in which they were located.
That part they could not appreciate.
You could hear a pin drop out there. However, I was over here, jamming on the one when it was coming on. So, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So, quick question before we kind of, wrap up with you. Brittney Griner's return. How are we feeling about that? What are you hearing? What do you forecast for her? Because, in so many ways, I've always been one to advocate for her mental health overall and to making sure that she's ready to be back on the court, which I'm sure she is. But what are you seeing? What do you think quite possibly could be in the cards for her in this upcoming season?
Just to be frank about it, like that isn't something that I've given a ton of thought to yet. Like, my frank concern is like, hey, let's get her home to, is she okay, period? Is she ready to really integrate herself back in public? Which that's why it made my heart smile of seeing the pictures of her at the Super Bowl not too long ago. And, also helps that she was cheering for Philly, made me feel a little bit better about that too. But it's nice to see her like getting back out there and stuff. So my main concern has been, how is she mentally? How is she spiritually? Is she going to be okay? As far as the basketball, like, one, that's just secondary to me. Two, just by sheer force and what she is, even if she's 70% of what she was the last time we saw her play basketball, that's still one of the most dominant low post scorers in the league. That's still one of the most dominant interior defenders in the league. And with what the Mercury have at least attempted to do this offseason, to bring some players back, make some moves, like, I think they're going to be not in that upper tier. Like, I do think the Aces and the Liberty, I think, are clear top of the league. I think the Mystics are a very clear third. But once you get into like that 4 to 6 range with the teams, like New Look, Sparks, we'll see what the Sky are doing. They've also made some moves. Like, I think the Mercury can be in that mix. I guess the Atlanta Dream as well. Got Alicia Gray early this offseason. Really like what she brings to the table on both ends. I think the Mercury are going to flow around that like third tier. And then if you get them in the playoff series, we'll see what the matchups are going to look like. But I think Brittney can still be dominant on the interior on both ends. But ultimately, I hope she's just okay.
Brittney, we love you, girl.
Yes, absolutely.
But thank you so much for joining us. You have been one of our day ones who has always supported the both of us. So when we got this opportunity, your name popped up first because we wanted to share this space with you. So thank you for joining us.
I appreciate y'all. Appreciate everything that you're doing. Thank you for allowing me to share the stage with y'all. Keep killing it.
Peace out.
At Nekias NBA, guys, if you want to follow him.
He's over here putting together a dream team, and that's such a far cry from this time last year when they couldn't pay anybody literally to come here and be an offensive coordinator. No one wanted to walk into the train wreck that was the Carolina Panthers at this time last year. And now he has just such a healthy mix of youthful, I guess, bright, invigorating new ideas with a healthy dose of veteran leadership. So I think that he's putting together a dream team. I like it. I'm a fan.
We've got FaceTime with our girl, Sheena Quick. Hey, girl. Hey, welcome.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Now, you are one of the Panthers beats writer, and and what you just touched on says a lot just about a team and how things can shift for a team. Kind of talk about what's going on with the Panthers right now and how the energy is sitting for them right now as a team as a whole.
I think it's on the upward trajectory after Steve Wilkes didn't get the job. A lot of people were pissed. I was one of the people that really thought that he should have gotten that job based off of what he did with that team over the last 12 weeks of the season. Didn't have a QB1. They were down to their third string quarterback. They had offensive starters out. They had defensive starters out. They traded their best offensive player, and he still finished with a 500 record at 6-6. So a lot of people were disappointed that he didn't get the job, even though after hearing David Tepper's reasoning as to why Frank Reich got the job, I get where he's coming from. And Frank Reich is the franchise's first ever offensive-based head coach. And let's face it, they have not been good on the offensive side of the ball, even when the defense has shined. So I understand the hire, and I really think it just points to the discriminatory practices of the NFL as a whole, where it's the normal trajectory is offensive coordinator to head coach. The problem is there aren't a lot of Black offensive coordinators. So it's systemic in that regard. So you get a David Tepper who I don't think he's discriminatory, but the premise and the basis and the infrastructure of the NFL definitely has been when it comes to those head coaching jobs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think
I agree too.
That type of pipeline, because we don't see as many offensive coordinators that are Black. But I really like the staff that they're putting together. I'm a fan of Frank Reich. I mean, I'm a Maryland girl, so he went to Maryland. I'm very well aware of his career. And then he's really putting together some guys that's going to make this team really look good offensively. Here's my question, though. Who's going to be the quarterback? Like, who is Carolina trying to get? Is it somebody in the draft? Are they looking for somebody in free agency? Are they looking for somebody into trade? And please do not say Lamar Jackson on this show. Thank you very much. But that's the biggest question mark, right? Because like you said, we saw what Wilkes did with essentially just guys, right? Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, PJ Walker, guys at this point. And I really think that they need a quarterback that can really try to push this. So what is in their cards for trying to fill that position?
I think they're definitely going to have to draft their quarterback of the future. I know Matt Corral is still on that roster. It's unfortunate for him that he didn't get a true shot his rookie year, but this is the NFL and it's, school of hard knocks. And sometimes that window of opportunity just disappears. It's not fair, but it's football. I do think that they will try to trade up to get up from that number 9 position, because they're not going to get their guy at number 9. Not someone that can play right away. If they have to pick at number 9, I think Anthony Richardson is your guy, who I think has a crazy amount of upside, but he's not ready to go in and start immediately. He's more of a project, maybe a season 2, season 3. But I don't think they kick the tires on any more retread quarterbacks. I wouldn't. They're 0 for 3. You had Teddy Bridgewater come in. Then you had Sam Darnold. Then you had Baker Mayfield. Then you had to still resort to PJ Walker, who played the best out of all 3 of those quarterbacks last year. And I don't know that he's going to be on the roster this year. So I do think we see the Panthers try to move up. I'm not going to be, super overly optimistic about them getting to 1. I don't think they're going to be able to get to 1. You got Indy and you got Houston, who also need quarterbacks that are going to be jockeying for that number 1 position. I don't think the Panthers can pay to play. I think best case scenario for them as far as getting a quarterback in the draft, I think that if they're able to trade up maybe to 3 or 4, but I don't think they're getting to 1.
So here's my wishful thinking, because we all know I'm a Buckeyes fan. Do you think maybe they could get a CJ Stroud and he could fit in?
They hope so.
Immediately?
They better trade up.
I think
what you think about that?
If they trade up, is definitely a possibility, because I'm just looking at the draft order. You got the Texans need a quarterback. The Colts need a quarterback. The Raiders need a quarterback. So they're going to have to hop up there to be able to take the second quarterback off the board, which could be Bryce Young, could be CJ Stroud, but those are going to be your top 2 quarterbacks off the board. And if the Panthers, they're going to barbecue a mildew. They got a lot of picks from that Christian McCaffrey trade. So they have some draft capital that they can play with, but I certainly think CJ Stroud is definitely a target for them, a high target.
That's one of my favorites.
Talk about your. Go ahead, baby.
I apologize. CJ Stroud, to me, has the better, he's more pro-ready to me anyway, in terms of like what the league is now. And I'm specifically talking, Bryce Young is too, but Bryce Young is traditionally, pocket quarterback, and he's small. He's super small. CJ Stroud can at least move around. He's very athletic in that regard. So I think that would really be a good move for you guys, but you're definitely gonna have to move up to get him, because he ain't gonna be there at
definitely 9. He's not gonna be there at 9. That's why I was like, I'm not gonna go ahead and sell no pipe dreams. He's not gonna be there at 9. I think that we may have a more clear indication of who QB 3 and 4 are after next week in Indianapolis and after seeing those guys perform the combine. But I agree with you guys. I think CJ Stroud would perfectly fit directly into this Panthers offense. They were able to get the run game established last year, but I don't know if they're going to be able to bring Deontay Foreman back. So that's going to be another big part of their offense. DJ Moore still almost got to 1,000 yards, because at the end of the day, DJ Moore can be out there playing with Aiden. My 7-year-old is his quarterback. He's going to get his yards.
I'm Team Aiden. I'm going to tell you that now. I'm Team Aiden.
Listen, he's going to get those yards. And Aiden would love to hear me say that, but he's going to get those yards. So I think when you pair him with Terrace Marshall Jr., who had a really good season, I think he's due a breakout season. He wasn't utilized too well during the Matt Rule era, but I think we see a change in that going forward with Frank Reich, especially with the quarterback that he's going to be able to bring in. Either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud can sling that thing, and Terrace Marshall is going to come down with it. If it's in his vicinity, he's coming down with the ball. So they have some pieces on offense, and just making the right decision at quarterback is going to determine whether this team is a wild card or a division winner, because the NFC South is there for the taking. There's no clear-cut winner. This is the year to do it. So either one of those guys fits into that. And again, the offensive line finally had some cohesion last year, but you got to bring back Bradley Bozeman. He's the free agent. So the Panthers have to lock down those key free agents that were able to move the needle for them last year. And I feel like the quarterback is the last missing piece. You drop him in there with Frank Reich, Thomas Brown, who I'm really, really excited about as the offensive coordinator. And this team has tremendous upside. I mean, I thought that they were a playoff team on paper last year. They just had some offensive ineptitude, with the quarterback shuffle, the quarterback carousel. And we're not going to talk about the Matt Rule era, because he's almost like Candyman. We say his name too much, he's going to pop up on a podcast.
It's either going to be him or his wife. You know what I'm talking about? It's going to be him or his wife that's going to pop up. You know what I'm talking about?
With a burner account. Listen, I finally just told. I said, "Listen, ma'am, aren't you supposed to be a Cornhusker Twitter? Because you just a little too salty every time somebody gets excited about this new coaching staff. Like it's time to go ahead and go back over to Nebraska." But yeah, I'm excited. I think this team can finally, I guess, reach its potential with the coaching staff. You got young minds, you got veteran leadership, and now you got some players that are I guess, more so veterans. You get a healthy J.C. Horn back. Jeremy Chin needs to move to linebacker. I don't know why they're playing with him. Then you have Dante Jackson. I mean, sky's the limit, honestly. I'm excited. I think a lot of the fans are excited. And I think that even people that had their reservations and were pissed that Steve Wilkes didn't get that job, even they have to, admit, okay, he's kind of putting together a dream team over here. Like every tweet that you get from the Panthers with new hires, he's like throwing haymakers. I mean, he's coming through with some heavy hitters. Jim Caldwell, Dom Capers is back. Like, I mean, I'm excited.
My favorite thing about Dom Capers. I
apologize. Don't you say it. Don't you say it.
I'll give this to you, Dawn. I'm gonna lob this over to you, Dawn. But real quick, my favorite thing about Dom Capers right now is he got the Beijing with the slick down. Okay, he looks fantastic, honey. And I love that for him. Okay, he got ready.
Listen,
he was ready for that press conference.
What did Cat Williams say? What did Cat Williams say? Can we act like this hair ain't luxurious?
Okay,
that's all I keep on. Then I said, okay, coach. That's
so
what
he's
we're doing.
fantastic. I'm sorry, Dawn. I had to get that out. It's back to you, but I just want to let y'all know he was looking mighty fine at that press conference. He was ready.
I felt it. So now,
I knew you were coming with it.
we all know that the franchise tag period began on Tuesday. So what players do you think we should be expecting to be tagged, or who will we find out has already been tagged? You know what I'm saying? So talk about that because me personally, my dating life, I don't want to be tagged, but that's a whole nother conversation. We talking about the NFL right now.
Dawn. Honestly, I can say I actually have no idea. I have no idea. This is a whole new staff. You don't know what premiums they're placing on which players. I know a lot of people have their eyes on Shaq Thompson, and if he's going to get his deal restructured or not, or if they're going to cut him, he's like a $24 million cap hit. So,
wow.
Yeah. So that's why I say you just never know when the new guys come in. You don't know where they're placing value at. And this is such a talent-rich roster that it's anybody's guess for me.
When you look around the league, because there's other players, obviously that are potentially tag worthy, right? Let's look at the Giants, for example. They have both their quarterback and their running back that are free agents. If you're the Giants, do you tag Danny Dimes? Do you tag Saquon? What do you do here?
I think you tag Danny Dimes, and I'm probably in the minority saying that, but running backs have a very small window. Saquon hasn't always been the healthiest, and so you have to take that into account. This is coming from somebody that saw C-Mac play 11 games over like over a 2.5 season period. So you have to kind of have that in the back of your mind as well if you are the Giants. But that's what I would do, but I'm not the team owner. So I guess we'll have to just kind of wait and see.
Well, he's asking for $45 million, so I don't know.
I got cursed out for laughing at that tweet.
I got to raise my cash app rates because if people like that is asking for a top pick, listen, I gotta raise my money. Ain't gonna be able to do it.
I mean, listen, I have no problem. I have no problem with people asking for, they're overblowing their worth, right? I have zero issue with that. But I'm sorry, it's laughable, it's funny that you
was hilarious, actually.
$45 million. I'm a person that believes that I'm worth $1 billion, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to ever do that in my lifetime. So, no, I'm not mad. I'm just saying that, us on the outside don't necessarily see the worth. That's all I'm saying.
I had to click and make sure it wasn't like a parody account because, sometimes they'll get you with those, especially because people can buy blue checks now. I had to make sure it wasn't a parody account because I was like, ain't no way now. I know he ran a Philly special and had the one-handed catch on the Panthers a season and a half ago, but 45, Danny? 45?
I knew it.
Oh, goodness. So real quick, Sheena, I know you went and covered the Super Bowl. Talk about that Super Bowl experience this year because, I turned that down and I was like, I don't think I want to be in Glendale. You know what I'm saying? So how did you feel about that?
Well, see, you might not have wanted to be in Glendale, but Scottsdale is where it was at. I thought Scottsdale was a vibe. I spent most of my week in Scottsdale. So it was definitely a vibe. And more so, to me, and being the mom of 3 Black boys, I thought it was huge that was the first Super Bowl between 2 Black starting quarterbacks. I think it's a shame that it's taken this long, but I did think it was really cool to be a part of that experience and to witness it firsthand. So I thought that was cool. Of course, everybody's against that last call. You hate for a classic game like that to come down to a call like that, but such is life. I thought it was a good game. I thought that, at the end of the day, Travis Kelce gonna score. He's gonna score. He's gonna dance. He might give you some stanky leg, the perk 10 dance. What they call it, the perky dance is what the kids said.
It was some perk dance.
I don't know what any of those
dances. Perky dance. I have no idea. I sound like my mom. One of those old perky dances. But it was a good game.
The jitty. What is it called? I don't know either. I don't know.
The gritty.
Okay,
little...
that's it. The gritty.
Yeah. It's the greatest.
Well, Sheena,
I left out the house.
that part. Well, Sheena, we appreciate you being on here with us. Just like we was telling the kids, we had to come up with people that we wanted to have on the show. You've always been equally supportive of us as well. So we wanted to share this space with you and kind of introduce you to this community. So yeah, girl, thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you guys for sharing your space with me. I feel so special.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate you.
What's his value? What makes him a good offensive coordinator? See, the problem is a lot of these people that go on social media, he should be the guy for the job. They haven't played there. They're not in the locker room. I've been in the rooms where he's coaching, and he has nothing to do with the pass game at all, right? When the plays are designed, that's Andy Reid. When you talk about offensive coordinators, I can tell you what makes Brian Daboll with the Giants a very, very good coordinator. I can tell you what Andy Reid or Doug Peterson. But when I asked about Eric Bieniemy, what makes him good? When we watch the film or practices and we correct the wide receivers, the running backs, the quarterbacks, he doesn't talk in there. Andy Reid talks in there. He may say things to the running back because he's an ex-running back coach. I get that. But he has no real responsibility. Now you go from the Chiefs, where you can hide behind Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. Then you go to the Washington, where you got to call plays. You got to run the meetings. You got to run the installs.
That is words from a man named Shady, by the way, who calls himself Shady.
Girl, so you know how I feel about this young man. And I just feel like, yes, he's a former player. Yes, he's been in that locker room, but you've also been benched by said coach. So you have a lot of feelings, quite personally, that you possibly have not processed yourself in that moment, because that was a big to-do. That was a big issue there, to where Andy Reid had to back up Eric on that decision. And so it's one of those things where it's like, okay, is this coming from a place of you genuinely trying to tell the general public what goes on in the locker room? Or is this coming from your personal feelings of this Black man trying to elevate himself in this league that you're no longer a part of?
Yeah, I got there's a couple of things here. Mr. Shady is trying to be a media figure. And so we all know that shock journalism is where people are going nowadays. So to me, he's trying to make a name for himself. Also, LeSean McCoy didn't even play a full season in Kansas City. He was a stopgap running back. That didn't play an entire season. They just filled in the gaps because we know that the Chiefs really don't run the ball. They thought that he could potentially help in that situation, which ultimately he was non-existent. Right. And here's the thing too, Dawn. Anytime that you make me have to use Tyreek Hill as credibility, which I am very disappointed in me having to do, I got a problem with you, okay? Because I think Tyreek Hill is not a nice human being, and that's just me putting it nice. However, even Hill has come out and gunned for and said Eric Bieniemy should have a job. He spent years in that offense. So who am I supposed to listen to? The guy that spent years in it and was an intricate part of the offense, or the dude that didn't even spend a whole year there and then really was an afterthought, a footnote of sorts when he was there? That's what I need to know.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go with the one that was there, and can actually, speak to this person's experience and the level of coaching that they should be on. Because one of the things that, I kept getting dragged on my timeline for, I did have a lot of support in what I had to say about Eric having to get ready to leave, the Chiefs in order to level up. He shouldn't even have to do that, honestly. Somebody should just be willing to just hand him a job, honestly. And at this point, it could be a lot of secession, over there with the Washington Commanders and all of that. But in my opinion, he shouldn't have to go. He shouldn't have to really go to an organization like that in order to get to that point, because the expectations then become even harder for him in that space, just because now that he's a new head coach, now everything's going to be on him, and he's got less time than the mediocre white coaches that generally get these jobs and have all the time in the world to rebuild and almost create a whole new stadium, quiet as it's kept, within 10 years per se, where they can kind of figure out what they're doing with the organization and with the team and what's happening in the locker room. So I just feel as if I'm just not going to listen to Shady McCoy and just chuck that up, that he was just trying to get him some hits and some listens on Twitter for the day.
Yeah, I'm not, again, if you call yourself Shady, voluntarily, then you're already telling us a lot about you as a person. And so I'm not interested in listening to him. He's gotten into it with other former players. Him and RG3 kind of had a thing on Twitter and, and such. So he's trying to make a name of himself in the media business. And to me, he's using Eric Bieniemy because that's the hot topic right now. That's really what it boils down to. Too many other coaches who have had less resumes have become head coaches, off the break. So for him to even say those types of things, just to me, you're just trying to get your media job, baby. You can do it another way. You don't have to do it. That's all I
oh my goodness. So we talked about, All-Star and all of that, but the biggest thing was like the attendance and the ratings.
Low, record lows. They had one of the worst attendance ratings. They had one of the worst viewership ratings. And it's not surprising, right? And my thing is that I'm confused as to why you think that Utah, just because they have a team there, just because Salt Lake City has a team, means that Utah should have an all-star game. If you want fans to come and engage and do certain things, I really believe that you have to have specific cities be set up for these types of events. It's no secret that basketball and NBA is entrenched into urban culture. Now, I'm not saying that non-urban cities shouldn't get these types of things, but I do think that you have to give people more options. Did you know that you can't even get a bottle of champagne? You cannot buy and drink a bottle of champagne in Salt Lake City.
Baby, I would have been mad as all get out. Do you hear me?
I'm flying out the next day. I'm flying out the next day. Okay. So not only is it nothing really to do, you're telling me what I can and cannot intake as a grown-up. And I have a problem with that, okay? So I can't expect anything less than what we saw in terms of low attendance. To make matters worse, Dawn, they paraded Karl Malone around as if to be some type of Utah ambassador, okay? Utah Jazz, the home of Karl Malone, has a past that we are very well aware of, and John Stockton, who's the alleged pinfall hat conspiracy theorist. So,
no, that wasn't. It just wasn't a good look. It just wasn't a good look. There's ways you can, honor the greats or, the people who do these things in the league a certain way without having to really give it such a broad platform like that. You get what I'm saying? A dinner would have worked, bring in some food and, shout them out, let them talk, shake some hands and go about their business. But this other stuff, absolutely not. And that's just one of the things that we have to talk about with players and their legacies. Sorry, but no. Fans, we real fans, real people, real humans, real parents, that watch this sport or watch these sports. We care about these images and the things that they continue to put up front in front of our children, as well as just our communities as a whole. So yeah, that was a huge problem for me. I was literally pissed.
I mean, I completely understand that the NBA is not in the morality business. I understand that. I understand that Karl Malone is a legend in Utah. All of those things can be true. But I think that you can also, like you said, I think you can privately celebrate somebody if you're in their city and not publicly put them on a platform where all we've received seen for the most part has been negative feedback from people. It is no secret. And a lot of people have just, it's some people that's just finding out about, Malone's past, in which, he had a child by a 12-year-old and then chose not to be in the life of one of his sons, who eventually went to the National Football League and played 5 seasons, by the way. But, people have... I've seen people ask, well, can't people, be forgiven and given grace? You can do that if you are accountable in your actions and you figure out a way to do better. Karl Malone has given us nothing. We have not seen any accountability from him. So why should we give him grace for any of that?
Yeah. Well, our quick hit, we just had to come with it. We just had some extra stuff that we wanted to share and talk about. And as just in general, as Black women in sports journalism, we don't usually have the opportunity to talk about real issues beyond the actual sport. And so it was great that we could take that moment to kind of hit on that before we go to this next break.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, before we go too, I want to shout out, you know, the Black women journalists, because we know it's not many. The Root did an article about where are the Black women sports journalists, and it's not many of us. And so it is really, you know, an opportunity for us to come on here and talk about the topics, you know, that are the hot topics, but really like get into detail about that, the Karl Malone topic.
Yes. So for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we'll be back to finish this out.
Man, this is a mess.
Oh my God, we really needed that music. Oh,
one thing about it that I just love about sports fans is we have our moments, we have our loyalties, we have the things that are superstitions, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like this is a moment. Like, that's just an amazing moment to just kind of like really be real about being petty.
Yeah. Look, this is my favorite genre right now. People with tattoos for their sports teams. I want to see more of it.
Yes.
Can we have more of that? Thank you so much, John. This was really fun. So fun.
I'm so appreciative of you.
Hope everybody enjoyed it.
Thanks everyone for watching this. Y'all better be retweeting and sharing these clips. We appreciate y'all. Thanks.
Out.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.